So I woke up this morning, I had a text from Henry Cejudo that says, I'm back. I interpret that to mean, hey, Chael, go tell the world that I'm coming back and that this is real. That's my interpretation, but I can't do that. I can't do that because we've just done this game too many times. We've done the yo-yo too many times. So I tell Henry, I need details. He sends me back like an emoji with a bunch of Olympic gold medals. And I mean, it was like this cool emoji. But again, I'm left with interpretation. How do I interpret that piece of art? Known as 5 or 6 emojis, all very positive. How do I interpret that? Do I guess? I think Henry's coming back, but that's not new. I never thought he was leaving in the first place. And when he never removed himself from the USADA pool, not to mention he's been training his ass off. Even when Henry was gone, even week 1 of Henry being gone, he's been doing a lot of boxing. He was even talking about fighting this Ryan Garcia guy, and there was somewhere in the Middle East that wanted to host this fight. It looks as though that died away, but Henry didn't know that. He was getting ready for it. So I'm sharing with you that I'm watching the world's greatest talent, the champion who never lost his belt, either of them, gave one away, gave them both away, given 2 belts away. Imagine how successful you have to be to give a world championship. Well, you know what I would do to be world champion? He gave 2 of them away, this crazy bastard. Okay. But now it appears that he is coming back, and it appears to some level that I believe it. I believe it enough that I'm sitting here and telling you guys, but what does that look like? Was this the world's worst decision by Henry to leave in the first place? Or does it not matter at all? It was less than a year ago. It was May of last year. He's back April of this year. Oh, geez. And guess what else I just realized? It's April Fool's Day. I'm not doing an April Fool's on you, by the way. I'm not 5 years old. But Henry might be doing one to me. That just dawned on me now. Okay, I don't think it is, and I'm going to push through this piece anyway. Says that he's coming back. What would that look like? Because Henry was very clear when he left in the first place. If there was enough money, he would come back. It was annoying, right? I mean, but you remember when he did that? He retired in the ring. He said Triple C's out, but he went to the press conference 44 minutes later, and he said, Dana knows my number. Dana knows how to get me back, and Dana's like, man, that's not what I do. I use guys that want to compete. I don't nobody has to fight over here. Okay. But I share that with you because that does do away with the championship clause, of which made Henry a very rich man. Henry's next fight will not have the championship clause because he's not bringing the championship. So his next match will look very different just contractually, not to mention, do you bring Henry back to be one of the guys? That's a tough one. You take absolutely the best fighter the division's ever had. I mean, Henry's in the argument for the best the sport's ever had. But now he's just one of the guys? And why? Because he walked away? Sure. But he didn't walk away that long ago. I mean, do you see the problem? He didn't walk away that long ago. This isn't he's been out 4 or 5 years. What's this going to look like? And Henry's, starting with a mile jog every day to try to get back in shape. That's not the case. He's still the guy. He's just as good. Plenty of champions haven't fought since Henry fought last. So if he slides back and he comes at 135, okay, now he's back to try to pursue what he had in the first place. Or does he go to 45 and try to do this champ business? I don't know, which is why I said to Henry, I need some details. But it is one of those things. Hold that thought. Because also in that division of 135, Jose Aldo has called out Dominic Cruz. Now, the one thing that Dominic showed all of you and reminded all of you in his fight with Casey is, unless you're the best fighter in the world, you're not going to beat him. And you can beat Dominic. Go ahead and beat him. Go look at his record. He's lost before to the absolute best fighters in the world. And he has not slowed down. His pacing hasn't slowed down. His timing, his ability, his reactions have not slowed down. And you have somebody like Jose Aldo that, guess what? You can beat him if you're the best fighter in the world. If you're not going to beat him. So what do you do with guys like that? And a common theme that we've seen with guys like that, complete studs that have already had those opportunities, and we just can't give you those opportunities again, but there's still something to do with you. We've seen them get released. JDS over him by example, studs. But if you don't have a plan, you don't know what to do with these guys, it's best to let some other promoter try, and that's what happened. But I bring this to you because and make sure you're tying all this stuff in together. This is on the heels of Oscar De La Hoya announcing he's coming back. This is on the heels of one of the biggest boxing matches being dangled in front of us, being Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. So there's a major question of what do we do with these athletes who perhaps had their best opportunities. I will not concede that Dominic Cruz best days are behind him. I won't. I saw too good of a fighter take on Casey with too many things he was up against, including the fact that he was taking on Casey. That he's not a main event, not co-main event. He was the third fighter. I mean, Dominic was up against everything. Did it anyway. Look great. Now I bring this to you because there's something very special. And as this sport is starting to change, and we are seeing some major changes, okay? This last year, some of the policies that were put in place and some of the ways that you could do things and get away with it, and that's good enough, we're here because of the uniqueness of the year. Not having an arena to... Do you know what a burden that is? Oh, golly. I will tell you, my least favorite part of the fight business is having to sell out an arena with live people. Very hard. Requires immense strategy. But when you did away with that, it did change how you could go about business and the stresses that you would feel. Your obligations as the organization become very different when you don't have that burden. So I'm sharing with you, we're seeing it in the Oscar De La Hoya, the Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. I'm attempting to paint with that picture is that age does not matter in this sport. It does not in terms of your draw ability and the interest that you can bring in. Matchups do. And when you start to have some of these veterans, Dominic Cruz, champion, Jose Aldo, champion, Frankie Edgar, champion, Henry Cejudo, champion. When you start to have some of these guys, I want us to give a real good look at this policy that this is only for champions and contenders. I think that policy has got to give just a little. There has to be room to have those veterans who are great, but greatest opportunities no longer exist. To have a Jose Aldo and a Dominic Cruz against each other, find Frank Yeager, see what he's doing, get the mix going. Possibly they gain some steam, bringing a young guy like a Sean O'Malley by example. I think you would be very wise to start to look at the veterans part of your division and how to use them, particularly in the landscape that the entire fight game is in right now. And we're seeing a real value in these guys who've had opportunity, whose names are out there that people can really resonate with. We've even seen some changes. I'll take a little credit for it. But Yoel Romero, when he was released from the UFC, Scott Coker said the very next day, don't want him, not touching him. And not because I don't think he's great. I don't like the stigma that a guy can get released there and find a home over here. It's go, hey, Coker, hold on 1 second. You don't have to sign him to a 3, 4, 5 fight deal. Same thing goes with Anderson Silva. You don't have to sign it can be a one-off. Sign Anderson, sign Yoel one night only, and bring them together. And I realize that didn't happen, but something along that line did happen. And you start to work a Rumble Johnson in there, and you start to see not everything has to be about champions and contenders. Not everything, not always. That's a very good policy. I see why it's in place. I'm just offering that perhaps it needs a little bit of room. We have to be able to change as the times change. And we are starting to see, and we're going to get a lot clearer vision when we see who Oscar fights and how those numbers do. But we are starting to see that there's a very different place in the sport right now for these name attractions. I very much wonder what this looks like if Henry comes back, right? Got partway through that before I realized the day is April 1st. I mean, that's not overly funny, and Henry's not. I don't think we're doing an April 1st here. Either way, if he comes back, what does that look like? Is he just one of the guys? Does he have to work his way back in? Does he sit out long enough? Because long enough becomes too long. We're just not there yet. Bleeding edge, cutting edge. We're not too long. It's less than a year. He left in May and has been training ever since. It's not that long. But if Henry says he's coming back and then he's got to wait for Aljo and Jan to figure that business out, when's he come back? What's it look like? I'm asking questions. I'm not answering them because I don't have the answer. I'm asking them. I will get them and I will bring them to you.